go. Well, everybody, 2023, this year is shaping up to be an amazing year for everybody like me who's part of the air cooling family. And now we have this guy, the Fuma 3 from Scythe. And this, I think, is going to buck some of the trends that we've been seeing lately, and that's higher end air coolers going for crazy prices, because the Fuma 3 is going for, and you can buy it right now in most regions, for $50 US. And for those folks keeping track at home, that's actually less than the Fuma 2 Revision B was launched for. And if you rewind to 4 years ago, it's actually less than the original Fuma 2. A big part of that price reduction is probably simply due to competition. Coolers like the Thermalright Peerless Assassin and Frost Spirit, and maybe to a lesser extent the Deepcool AK620, are putting an incredible amount of downwards pricing pressure on the entire air cooling market right now. So I guess you could say Scythe's hand was sort of forced here. Of course, I need to level with everybody here and sort of temper expectations accordingly, because the Fuma series has never ever been about going for the jugulars of these huge air coolers, these 140mm monsters like the D14 and the Assassin series. Instead, Scythe really focuses directly on their strengths, and that is delivering a compact 120mm size dual tower cooler that has amazing compatibility, is very compact, so it can fit into a ton of different cases, including some ITX cases, and of course delivering optimal cooling performance across a wide range of scenarios. But you know what can deliver optimal cooling across a wide range of scenarios? And that is this case from Thermaltake.
Okay, so move over slightly. Yeah, keep going, keep going. Okay, now rotate the motherboard. Rotate it, okay? For cooling or what? Yes, it's for thermal efficiency, okay? Ah, for centralized thermal efficiency, huh? That is right. Meet the new form factor to explore all types of cooling possibilities, especially for the GPU, with this unrestricted rear intake in a full tower designed to be roomy and easy to work in, with full dust filtration, rear chamber to hide all your cables so you can let all the air in from all four sides. Check out the all-new Thermaltake CT options down below.
So the way that Scythe reduced the footprint of this primarily is to pair a slim 120mm fan at the front with a slimmer heatsink, and then a standard 120mm in the middle with an expanded fin array in the back. Now what this does is it not only allowed them to reduce the overall height of the cooler so it can fit into a compact case like the NR200, it also allowed them to go with 100% memory compatibility, even if you have all 4 memory slots populated on a standard ATX motherboard. Overall though, I can understand why a lot of people look at this and say, hey look, it's a Fuma 2 in disguise, because it might look like not a lot has changed between the Fuma 2 series and the Fuma 3, but this is an almost entirely new cooler that's been engineered from the ground up to optimize performance on today's CPUs. While the Fuma 2 Revision B basically slapped a pair of Kaze Flex 2 fans onto the older Fuma 2 heatsink, this new design is specifically engineered to take advantage of the higher static pressure from those fans. That means a denser fin array that also has a slightly larger footprint, but it doesn't affect compatibility in any way, since the Fuma 3 uses a cantilevered layout that completely avoids a motherboard's heatsinks. The other thing that you're probably noticing is the fact that the new Fuma 3 has this black cap over here that allows you to have a much cleaner look than any of the older Fumas. But there's a little thing that some of you might want, and that would be a all black cooler or an all white cooler from Scythe. And unfortunately, for the time being at least, that's just not going to happen anytime soon. But I'd actually argue the biggest change is Scythe's 5th generation HPMS mounting system that's supposed to improve pressure on both LGA 1700 and AM5 CPUs. Other than heatsink design, achieving the right mounting pressures probably the single most important aspect of modern CPU cooling. Oh, and the installation procedure, well, that's amazing as usual, absolutely no issues there. So what we have here is probably the holy grail for a lot of people who have used Scythe's coolers. Basically, you have extremely aggressive pricing for the new Fuma 3, coupled with the known long-term durability of Scythe's fans. Now those fans are some of the quietest I have ever heard since using the Revision B, because the Revision B, they'd actually use the exact same fans. But let's take a listen.
Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen.
So they're stupidly quiet. But other than all of the engineering that has gone into this cooler, we also have to remember one very important fact, is that the Kaze 2 fans, they top out at just 1500 RPM. And when you line that up to every other cooler in the high-end market, well, you can actually see that it's going to be fighting a little bit of an uphill battle because that number is on the very, very low end of things. And yet that's not really a bad thing because what Scythe is offering here is exactly what a lot of people are typically looking for: superiority at low noise levels. So with that contextualized a little bit, let's see how this cooler lines up with everything else out there in the high-end sector when it comes to gaming, because I'm pretty sure that's what a lot of you guys who are watching this video are using your system for. So let's add all the other coolers we've tested to this point, and of course add the Fuma 2 Revision B, which, considering its price, still performs very, very well. But the Fuma 3 really takes things to the next level. It's superior to its predecessor in every conceivable way. The closest competitor is actually the AK620, but we also have to remember that cooler's taller, more expensive, and a lot of people have been reporting long-term noise issues with it. Narrowing that down to a constant 38 decibels shows how much of an improvement the Fuma 3 is versus the Revision B. Even though it's one of the least expensive heatsinks here, it's still in the top 5 when it comes to performance in gaming. And yet there isn't really all that much difference in frame rates. As a matter of fact, anything under 100 degrees doesn't seem to affect gaming performance whatsoever, even in more CPU intensive games. Moving on to a 100% CPU load, and the results for the Fuma 3 are pretty conclusive, though we have to remember the 180 watt thermal threshold is reserved for i5 class CPUs and not higher end ones. Either way, it ends up being a solid 2 to 4 degrees better than the Fuma 2 Revision B, which I already considered one of the best air coolers around for its price and known quality. And that puts it into elite company, but we also have to remember it isn't designed to go toe to toe with some of the massive coolers like the D15 and Assassin 3. Even then, its results at lower noise levels are so impressive. I mean, sure, the Frost Spirit and Peerless Assassin can beat it, especially when you're talking about price to performance. And looking at clock speeds at 38 decibels is pretty eye-opening too, since there really isn't that much difference between the best and worst coolers here. They all hit within 50 or so megahertz of one another, which is well within the margin of error for our CPU. Moving on to 253 watts, and things change a lot. Based on these results, I'd actually say the Fuma 3 is more at home cooling a higher end, higher TDP processor than a lower end one. At lower noise levels, it matches the Deepcool Assassin 4 and then pulls away to the point where it beats the Peerless Assassin and comes within just half a degree of the massive Assassin 3. For a pretty compact design that boasts 100% memory compatibility, even with 4 slots populated, and doesn't even use 2 full-size fans, that's just ridiculous. Normalizing the results to 38 decibels shows just how much of a massive improvement Scythe has been able to get over the Fuma 2. This is a perfect example of what happens when you engineer a heatsink around the capabilities of a fan rather than slapping new fans on an older design like they did with the Revision B. You can really see the Fuma 3's effect on clock speeds too. The combination of better mounting pressure and a revised fin stack really adds up to some impressive numbers at 38 decibels under a full core workload. And let's also unshackle the 13900K and let it run balls to the wall, which means all of these poor coolers end up getting 100 degrees on the nose. I think we need a little bit more detail when it comes to clock speeds too at this kind of heat load, because there's a world of difference here. The Fuma 3 basically proves what I said before. It absolutely loves higher wattage scenarios. While there's no way it can compete with bigger coolers like the Frost Spirit, D15, and Assassin 3 at low fan speeds, get to 38 decibels and above, and it's one of the best coolers on the planet. Full stop. So we now know that the Fuma 3 just blows expectations out of the water, but there's one more test I wanted to try. Scythe gives you a third set of fan clips. So what I'm going to do is I am going to slap a third standard 120mm Kaze Flex 2 onto this cooler, normalize things to 38 decibels, and let's see exactly what happened. Well, talk about shock and awe. With a 253 watt thermal load, the extra fan really kicks things to the next level, and I mean Noctua D15 levels. And remember, this is from a 120 millimeter cooler that comes in at just 154 millimeters in height and has unlimited memory compatibility. Not only that, adding that third fan didn't destroy compatibility whatsoever. When I heard that the Fuma 3 was coming out in 2023, I did not have high expectations. That's because the market is going to be filled with massive coolers this year. We already saw the Deepcool Assassin 4, which really didn't perform up to expectations whatsoever. There was the Tough Air 710, which was a pretty good cooler. Once again, oversized, and it just had an absolute mounting system. Then along comes the Fuma 3. We plugged it into the system and it absolutely exceeded every single expectation that I had. And I'm sure after seeing those numbers, it probably exceeded your expectations too. Because if you look at it next to the original Fuma 2 Revision B, there doesn't seem to be that much change, but it shows how mounting pressure and carefully designing your fin array can result in an extremely competitive cooler. For me, the icing on the cake is the fact that Scythe is selling this for $50. I have to give them massive kudos for that, because every single product that we're seeing, heck, even butter this year, $9 for butter. It's freaking blowing my mind. But this is actually going back to a time long past where we have some really competitive prices from big names. And I'm really hoping that Noctua and Be Quiet are watching this video, because Scythe is sort of like showing them the way. Maybe we design these things in such a way that brings down the price for everyone while still offering very, very competitive cooling performance. So anyways, I am actually going to give this, my Hardware Canucks, damn good value and damn good award. Bravo, Scythe. You absolutely have the tip of my hat. And you guys, I am going to see you guys in the next video. Have a great day.